Okay, so we've posted a bill manually, we've posted an expense manually, and we've reconciled it against the bank account. Um, in fact, as I mentioned before, we don't particularly the bill function, the manual bill function. We never use that as an accounting practice. Is um, if our client, if we're doing the bookkeeping for clients and they've got uh, and we're using Zoho Books, we we fundamentally tell them just to use Zoho Autoscan. So what happens with this is the it's a scenario where the client can simply just dump all invoices, purchase invoices that they receive, um, into the document section of Zoho, and it starts scanning the data out of the invoices. The benefit of that is our bookkeepers always have the relevant documents, and it kind of takes the hassle away from the client, that their job is kind of just to keep dumping invoices in there, and they don't have to worry about the complexity surrounding what's happening to those invoices within the accounting system. So it's hugely valuable for us. So I'm going to enable Zoho Autoscan. Great. So what happens at this stage is there tends to be three ways clients get stuff into the system based on what they want to do. Um, Probably the most common is the configurable email address, right? So ABC Limited now has, once I configure this, has its own email address, which is kind of linked to Zoho Autoscan. So if you're like me, most of my invoices will come from Amazon Web Services, for example, or something like that. They come via email. I can either in the Amazon portal make sure that all those invoices don't even come to me personally; they just forward to this email address. Alternatively, if I do get an invoice to me from Zoho, for example, I will just forward that, not even think about it. I just forward it to Zoho Autoscan. Um, and then at least I know it's there. So it's an email. This email address here is used to kind of just scan documents. It The document tends to be have to be an attachment. If the invoice is actually the body of the email itself, it does struggle to read that. So you need to be careful with invoices that are in the body of the email. If you do have suppliers like that, sometimes it's annoying, but you have to go into their website and actually download the invoice. Uh, Actually, good example is, let's say I did go in and download one of these invoices. I've downloaded it to my desktop, right? So let's say I've got this PDF document on my desktop. The other way to get it into Zoho Books is I obviously go into, I'll show you how I got to this section. From the main dashboard in Zoho, I go down to documents. So this tends to be a big function that you end up using. I can then choose file, search for my desktop. I can upload the bill. So what you'll see here, it says scan in process. So what that document's doing right now is it's it's grabbing this bill from this supplier, and it's reading all the data sitting within the document. So the idea is, if we had an existing supplier called Rob and Joe Traders, it would be essentially assigning the invoice to them and attempting to grab the associated detail within the invoice, including invoice number, etc. Oh, as I've been talking, you'll see it's been processed. Zoho's actually a lot quicker than most other scanning systems you'll see. Now you'll see the invoice has been processed. So let's open this invoice. I want to add it to a bill. I could create an expense transaction, and we've already obviously discussed that. It's rare that I mean, there might be reasons that we're not aware of, but we rarely use the expenses function from the document section. The expenses function, if we use it, it tends to be when we haven't got a document altogether and there's just no way of getting an invoice off a client. So we go new bill. Um, So what you'll see, it's already detected that there's a new vendor here, right? Um, it's actually picking up that ABC is the vendor, but I think it's because my example invoice isn't very good. Um, Robin Joe Traders. Um, you'll see that if my example invoice is better, it would have picked up that the real vendor is Robin Joe Traders. Um, there, if we already had the invoice, um, if we already had the invoice, we would the vendor set up. It would be assigning it to the vendor, and all these details would be populated already. Aside from that, one thing you will notice is it's it's picked up the invoice number, and it's also picked up the invoice total. There is an extended feature within Zoho Autoscan to pick up line items, but because we're using like a free trial plan, it's obviously only picking up the total of the invoice. So if you did want to add line items, this 600 and £662 wouldn't really be relevant anyway. So you'd have to type this in and make sure it's all separated individually. If you're one of our clients, this is what our bookkeepers are doing in the background. So it's agreed with us, and then we kind of implement the process from there. So obviously there is VAT, etc. on this example invoice, and very strange VAT because it's just a sample. But I'm just going to ignore that for the time being to show you how it pushes through. Make sure I've assigned an account code. So this is web design. So let's just put this to marketing. Great. So this is now done. With Zoho Autoscan, obviously I've shown you you can use an email address to get it into the system. You can also use drag and drop or go and find it on your desktop. Um, actually the biggest function, particularly for single director businesses, and our clients tends to be we get them to download the Zoho Books app. When they have access to this same feature, except because it's on their phone, they also have the feature to take a photo. So if they're in restaurants and they're constantly on the move, they're using this function to take photos on their phone. So yeah, that tends to be extremely useful, basically. So what is the benefit of kind of using Zoho Autoscan is if you use other major accounting systems, you'll notice they're all doing this now. But they tend to use third-party systems to do scan, whereas Zoho has it built in internally. Is from a third-party bookkeeper or accountant perspective, we need this documentation so we can scrutinize the invoice. It can support the bank transaction that's gone out, and then if you do get an audit from HMRC, you've then got all the information there. You can essentially just go, here you go. Every single transaction you'll see, the Robin Trader vendor transaction we've just created, we've got an invoice attached to the document, so it's sitting there. And we don't need to have a big pile of paper sitting in the background, etc. So it's all sitting within Zoho Books. So that kind of sums up what we're going to go through on this video. We've got other videos on how to post sales invoices and use custom domains. It's taking us a while to create some of these videos, but keep going to our YouTube page and it should be expanding. Yeah.